Of the red and blue political roundup, President Trump took his post-Mueller investigation victory tour to Capitol Hill Tuesday. Mr. Trump once again said the report cleared him of colluding with the Russians and obstruction of justice. The president also reiterated his claims the special counsel's investigation was a witch hunt.
The Mueller report was great. It could not have been better. It said no obstruction, no collusion. It could not have been better. This should never happen to a president again. We can't allow that to take place.
Mr. Trump was on Capitol Hill for a lunch meeting with Senate Republicans. Afterward, he told reporters the GOP was going to take on a once hot-button issue.
The Republican Party will soon be known as the party of health care. You watch.
Let's bring in Kevin Cirilli now. He is the chief Washington correspondent for Bloomberg News. Kevin, welcome. Great to have you with us. So, healthcare. Why do Trump and Republicans want to start the fight over healthcare now?
They feel that it's going to help them with their base. Look, the president ran on fully repealing and replacing the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, but that has proven to be more difficult than he had hoped. We all remember earlier on in his administration when he tried to get the votes to do so, but Republicans making the calculation that it would have hurt them in the midterm elections. What's interesting, though, about the president's comments on Capitol Hill, where I was earlier today, is that really, there was no formal unveil of any type of policy plan. So on the one hand, Republicans are talking health care, but with no rollout of any type of plan. And progressives are talking about a Green New Deal without any details there either.
So there seems to be a sort of general hope on both sides that maybe voters aren't really paying attention.
Yeah, but they are paying attention, and that's what's going to be interesting where are the details of these policies?
Right. That is something we're all waiting for. All right, Kevin, as we know, I mean, healthcare was a major point of focus in the 2018 midterm elections. But again, without, like you said, some clear plans, when do you think either side is going to start being more concrete about these issues?
Well, I think Democrats and progressives are definitely going to be having this debate during their Democratic primary ahead of the 2020 presidential. I think that health care for all is something that you're already hearing about on the campaign trail. And the nuances between the candidates in particular are starting to emerge, particularly between the more Democratic socialist candidates like Senator Bernie Sanders and more centrist candidates. So that debate's going to play out in real time. The question for Republicans is going to be, will they be able to get any type of concrete policy across the finish line and enacted into law? Or will any of their proposals go beyond just being political messaging techniques because of divided government? They would need to win over significant amount of Democratic support in the House of Representatives in order to get them to get anything into law. And in this is such a volatile, divisive issue that largely it would be difficult for them to do anything other than a political messaging bill.
And I think you're right. At this point, it's not enough for Republicans to just say we want to repeal Obamacare. That didn't work. They actually need to say that and then present a plan, which is
absolutely. And look, I was just speaking with the Republican strategist Ron Bonjean, who conceded as much. I mean, and let's not forget, there are parts of the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, that are incredibly popular, and moderate districts that the Republicans lost in the 2018 midterm elections, suburban districts. Parts of that health care, Obamacare, are incredibly popular. And so to repeal those aspects would be a politically divisive issue. That said, there are also parts of the Affordable Care Act, as we all know from covering, that remain unpopular as well.
All right. So let's turn back to the Mueller report, if you will. We just heard the president call it great, but also in the same breath slam the special counsel's investigation. So which one is it? And which line of attack do you expect to see the president continue with as he hits the 2020 campaign trail?
Well, he's going to hit that trail hard on Thursday when he campaigns in Michigan, a key battleground state that he carried in the last election. Look, every Republican staffer that I've spoken with and every Republican strategist, lawmakers, they are viewing this as a settled score in many ways with no conspiracy. That could have been a dominant dominant setback, a massive setback, and they feel that this cloud has been lifted, this shadow that had been cast over them for 2 years, 22 months of an investigation by Bob Mueller, the special counselor, more than 2,900 subpoenas that were issued during this. They feel now that it's over, and the president, by all accounts, feeling emboldened, but not just the president, but also his staff, his surrogates, lawmakers in the Republican Party. But on the issue of obstruction of justice, it's far from over. Democrats are calling for the immediate release of the Mueller investigation. Attorney General William Barr is set to testify publicly before the House Judiciary Committee in the coming weeks. And this is a conversation that 2020 presidential candidates are going to be having. But whether or not they can have it while also talking about policy issues and don't drown out that policy message, that could be a challenge for them.
A delicate balancing act, if it were. Now, as you pointed out, the Democratic chairs of 6 House committees have asked Attorney General William Barr to release Mueller's full report by April 2nd. And President Trump has even said he wouldn't mind if the whole report came out. A new Quinnipiac poll shows 84% of Americans want to see it. So who's at greater risk here, Democrats or Republicans, if the report does not come out in full?
That's a really good question. You know, I'm not. I think if I don't know to be honest in terms of what the polling would suggest. But I go back to that vote in the House of Representatives a couple of weeks ago, 420-0, where Republicans joined with Democrats. I think there was like 4 abstentions who didn't vote in it, but 420 lawmakers saying they would like to see the Mueller report made public, and the polls suggest an overwhelming a majority of Americans believe that as well. This is something that we have talked about for more than 2 years. And I think virtually every American can relate around their dinner table where this has also dominated the conversation. Let's see the report.
Right. And if the president has no objections, well, hey, all
Why
right.
not?
Why
Put
not?
it out on Twitter.
Bit by bit. That would take a long time, but that's a good idea. All right. So the House Tuesday, as you know, failed to override President Trump's veto of the resolution ending his national emergency declaration at the border. So this, of course, sets the stage for a legal battle over this issue. How does the White House feel about this?
They feel that they're going to win this fight in the courts, but this is much more of a significant risk to the president's policies on that declaration of a national emergency along the U.S.-Mexico border wall, or along the U.S.-Mexico border for the wall, than the veto threat really ever was. The votes just simply aren't there in terms of there being a supermajority for Democrats. That's non-existent, and this was never really a significant threat. Now, what it is another potential challenge, though, for the president should this go all the way up to the Supreme Court. But from the Republican perspective, and this is what's really fascinating, they headed until the end of last week, or really even back when he was in Vietnam with North Korea leader Kim Jong-un, during the Michael Cohen public testimony that dominated the conversation. They headed into last week with a cloud over them in terms of the Mueller report, in terms of there potentially being more indictments, in terms of there being even a prosecution of a conspiracy with Russia. They now they now enter into this new phase of their administration with the president having the border wall fight, successfully defeating his first veto threat, a vow to continue to dismantle the Affordable Care Act, and what President Trump's advisors are saying is an emboldened president free from the Mueller report investigation.
Yes, it'll be very interesting to see going forward how an emboldened president free from the specter of the Mueller investigation responds to a variety of issues, but especially this one. All right, so Kevin, also on Tuesday, the Senate voted against moving forward with the sweeping climate change legislation, which is being known as the Green New Deal. 57 senators voted against it, and 43, including all 6 of the declared 2020 candidates, voted present. So, Kevin, what is the latest you're hearing from Democrats about this? Is this sort of being caught between a rock and a hard place when it comes to the Green New Deal?
Yes. And look, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who really has been at the forefront of this as a Democratic Socialist freshman member from New York, says that she was okay with those Democrats voting present. She criticized Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell for having this political vote. She said that she would have preferred that there be hearings on the issue. But from the leader's office in the Senate, they view this as an absolute opportunity to get folks on the record for where they stand on the Green New Deal. Now, you mentioned the 4 Democrats who voted with Republicans on this. The Senator Angus King is registered as independent, caucuses with the Democrats. Kyrsten Sinema, Democrat freshman member from Arizona, as well as Doug Jones, a centrist from Alabama, and, of course, Senator Joe Manchin, a Democrat from West Virginia. Those Democrats are now by voting this way are now really the key centrists to watch in this 2020 cycle. That they have now emerged as the key swing votes on a host of different issues, not just relating to the Green New Deal. But this is going to be something that we are talking about for a while.
Yes. So now they've essentially stuck their necks out. Now Republicans know who to focus on anytime there's a close vote. It is interesting because, as you pointed out, Kevin, it was brought to a vote simply because Republicans wanted Democrats to have to go on record about it. In that regard, do you think they succeeded in what they were trying to do here?
Yes, but I think Democrats would say the same thing. And in fact, I spoke with a Republican strategist yesterday, as well as a Democratic socialist strategist, and both of them, for very different reasons, were in agreement that having this vote was something they wanted. They wanted to see where everybody stood. They wanted to see which side everyone would fall on. Because from the progressives' perspective, they say, yeah, get everybody on the record. They feel that the voters will ultimately gravitate toward them, toward their initiative for the environment. Now, in contrast to that, Republicans say game on. If you want to move the party to the left, if you want to go in a more socialist direction, they believe that independent voters in states like Michigan, where the president's headed on Thursday, Wisconsin, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Florida, that ultimately that will be too far to the left.
Right.
But we talked about immigration, so I mean it's a fascinating political tug of war right now that we're living in.
It is, because you just don't know how big is the appetite among younger voters, for instance, for something dealing with the environment, and frankly for perhaps a slightly more progressive platform. We just don't have answers to that yet.
We don't. We absolutely don't. And even beyond the younger voter perspective, I mean, if you even go out to the activist vote in the Democratic primary, where some of these candidates on the left are going to be reaching out to voters who, quite honestly, haven't really voted in traditional Democratic primaries in the past, because they feel that the policies that are being campaigned on are the same types of policies. So what AOC, as she's known, has been able to do, regardless of where you fall down on the issue, is to force a conversation on issues in a way that have not been framed in the American political debate before. It is fascinating to watch. It's going to have a long-lasting effect, and it's upsetting not just Republicans but some establishment Democratic members as well.
It is fascinating to watch. I totally agree with you, and I just want to make one other comment. It could also be surprising how many first-time voters she motivates from the left. When you think about all of those people just turning 18, for instance, who maybe have never voted before but are motivated by AOC or others like her to head to the polls, this election cycle. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And in fact, whether it's, I would anticipate, rather, I can tell you just in talking with some staffers on some of the different Democratic presidential campaigns, that already the college affordability is going to be an issue we're going to be hearing a lot about as well. I
would not be surprised. All right, Kevin Cirilli, thank you so much. A pleasure talking with you.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.